not to be outdone by Nintendo, but Sony is raising the price of the PS5 in the following countries. And I know you're probably thinking in the US because of the tariffs. No, although I do anticipate once the tariffs do, if they ever fully grow through, or if anybody there figures out what the hell they're doing over there, I'm sure that the price will go up now that the United States government is essentially acting like scalpers at this point. But no, not in the US yet. Right now, those prices are going up in Europe, in England, in Australia, and in New Zealand. And you might think, well, that sucks. And it does. But a lot of people don't realize that this has already happened before. Since the PS5 launched, its price has gone up in those locations already. And now they're raising them again. Sony says that it's because of a backdrop of challenging economic environment, including high inflation and fluctuating exchange rates. Now, maybe that's all true. I get it. You know, you sell a product, if it becomes suddenly more expensive to sell that, to manufacture that product, then you have to raise the price of that product. Otherwise, you're going to start losing money. The thing is, I don't believe them. I think that there's way too many corporations that use the idea of inflation as an excuse to gouge the customers, especially when there's very little competition. And I'm going to get to that competition later on in this video. So, how much is the price going up in these locations? Well, it depends on where you are. So let's start with Europe. The current, the new price of the PS5 digital edition is going to be 499 euros, which is a 50 euro hike. But because it's already happened before, that is now a 100 euro hike, because originally that system sold for 400 euros. So now it's increased in price by 25% from its original price at launch, which is crazy to me. In the UK, the PS5 digital edition is now £429, which is £40 more than how much it cost before, and it was now £70 higher than it was at launch. In Australia and New Zealand, both the digital version of the system and the disc version of the system are going up in price. The prices are listed on the screen right now so that you can see them. My point is, the price is going up for this device. I don't believe Sony that they're doing this because they have to. I think that Sony is looking at the current gaming landscape with the lack of competition, and I'm going to talk more about that in a second, and saying, we can get away with this, especially with Nintendo pissing everybody off with $80 priced games. But guess what? I'm sure that we'll see $80 games on PlayStation sooner rather than later. Now, I'm sure that there's some of you sitting there thinking, oh, thank God I bought my PS5 when I did, so I don't have to deal with these price increases. But I've got some bad news for you. Depending on where you live, you're still going to get price increases if you use their PS Plus, which you have to if you play any online games. And if you don't play any online games, then this is not going to affect you, at least not yet. I'm sure that they'll find some way to increase your prices at some point, especially reflecting Nintendo's $80 price structure for Mario Kart World. We're going to see the same thing on PlayStation, like I already said. But Sony sent out an email to their Canadian customers saying, hey, we are raising the price of Canadian PS Plus, our subscription service. And it feels to me like they're saying, you know, it's like Darth Vader saying, I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it further. Well, they're going to alter it further, because that is exactly what they keep on doing. All of these companies, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, Netflix, everything that you subscribe to keeps increasing the price or taking things away. And it's freaking awful. Now, what's their justification? Here's what Sony says. This price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription service. Gee, thanks. I don't know, like, I subscribe to PlayStation Plus because I want to play online. I don't subscribe to PlayStation Plus for the extra games that they give me, because most of the time those are games that I've already played or I don't find them particularly interesting. This month, however, is a huge change from that because Blueprints is on both PS Plus and Game Pass, and I am very much interested in that game. But that's for another time. We actually talked a bunch about it on the most recent episode of the NerdNest podcast. All right, so how much are the prices going up in Canada? Keep in mind that these are Canadian dollars and you can convert them to your currency on your own. PlayStation Plus Essential 12-month subscription is $110 now, Canadian. Previously, it was $95, so it went up 15 Canadian dollars. If you go with Extra, it's now $190, which is up from $155. That's a huge increase. And then if you are a PS Plus Premium subscriber, that has gone up from $190 Canadian up to $225. Now, I just want to put this into perspective. If I am going to buy a PlayStation 5 in Canada, this is the price that I will pay. And they are paying now $225. That is not an insignificant percent of the cost of the system itself. And they're going to be paying that every single year, but not really, because they'll probably be paying more next year when Sony raises the price again. I've said this a million times. I always get people pushing back on me. If I sign up for a service at this price, then I should be able to keep that price as long as I stay subscribed to that service. If I leave and then come back, my price goes up. Why would companies do this? Because it incentivizes people to not cancel their subscription, even if they're not really using it, because they know that they're going to get hit with a big price increase if they cancel their subscription. So why is it that Sony feels like they can get away with this? I think that the reason is because their biggest competitor basically just exited the race and said, you win. Microsoft has lost too many generations in a row. They've decided they can't really compete on an equal footing with PlayStation. PlayStation has too much momentum. Xbox lost the generations where people build their back catalogs of games. So now people feel almost entrenched into buying Sony products over switching over to an Xbox because of the libraries that they've already bought and the fact that they've spent so much time playing with their friends on these systems. Switching to another system just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for most people. So Sony feels like, well, you've got Nintendo, but Nintendo isn't really competition for Sony. I feel like they're two wildly different audiences. In fact, Nintendo stands alone. Like they do their own thing, and the people who want Nintendo stuff are going to buy the Nintendo stuff. And if those people also want other stuff, then they will also get other stuff. But I don't really see people moving between Sony and Nintendo very often. I don't see people moving between Nintendo and Xbox or Nintendo and PC. It's usually Nintendo and anything else. That's usually how it goes, which is why Nintendo sold close to 160 million Nintendo Switches and why they feel confident with the Nintendo Switch 2. So with Microsoft out of the race and Nintendo having its own audience, Sony basically feels impenetrable and they feel like they can do whatever they want. We need them to have some kind of competition. Right now, I feel like their only real competition is PC. And Sony feels that competition with PC, and that's why we're seeing Sony games on PC. They're selling their games on Steam. Why are they doing that? They're doing it because they have reached the maximum addressable market of the console. every single generation, basically the same number of consoles sell, and they're not growing. And investors always want to see some kind of growth. They've reached the cap of people that they can sell consoles to and console games to. So their only other option is to start selling those games on PC so that they can reach new people and satisfy investors by seeing that, because then they can see a little graph go up. So with Sony and Nintendo both making things more expensive and Microsoft basically becoming a PC, what should people do? Well, I think that they should consider skipping consoles and going to the PC. Now, I don't have a dog in this race. I don't care which one wins because I have access to all of the different systems. I understand that that's a privileged place to be in, and maybe you can only afford one. And if you can only afford one, then my advice is to get a PC, because if we look at the advantages and disadvantages to playing on PC, the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages, in my opinion, for playing on PC. And the disadvantages are all something that can be easily solved. Let's talk about the disadvantages first, and then we'll talk about the advantages. A disadvantage to a PC is usually they're expensive, because you gotta buy these expensive parts and put them together. Although you don't have to get like top of the line stuff. It's nice to feel that sense of future proofing by buying a really expensive graphics card and putting an expensive PC together and knowing I'm going to be okay for a long time. The second big disadvantage to a PC is that it's just, you have to tweak things quite often, and there's a lot of people that are uninterested in tweaking things. And then the third thing is that you're constantly like fighting with having a couch interface. If you are going to play at a desk, that completely is not an issue. And eventually maybe Valve or Microsoft will be able to fix it so that playing on a couch and not having a mouse and keyboard available is not really an issue. But those are the disadvantages to playing games on PC. The advantages to playing games on PC are, number one, the library is so much bigger. You just have so many games that you can play. It's insane how many games are on Steam. Like, there's 12,000 games loaded on Steam every freaking year. And I'm just making that number up, but I think I'm actually lowballing it. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's also constant Steam sales. Like, you constantly get games really, really cheap. You have things like Humble Bundle, which, if you don't know, basically there's a couple of different ways that works. You can have a bundle of games that are a bunch of games put together that are similarly themed, and you can buy them really cheap. Like right now they have a Metroidvania bundle linked down below if you want to check that out. And then they have Humble Choice, where it's a subscription, but that subscription is actually really cool because every month you get games and you keep them even if you unsubscribe. And on top of that, you can unsubscribe for the month and then come back the next month. It's really, really handy. Like, it's just built in. I really like Humble Bundle. So you've got a huge library. You've got ridiculous sales. Also, you don't pay for online. Like, when you go to play a game online with your friend and you don't have to subscribe to anything. Like, those are just a couple of the advantages that PC has over consoles. And if you can get the UI right, then a PC just feels, and make a PC just feel like a console, then why would you want a console? Probably for the exclusives, but those exclusives are slowly moving over to PC as well. Like I talked about earlier, Xbox and PlayStation are bringing their biggest games to PC because they want to make sure that they can hit as many customers as they possibly can. I guess the point of this video is that this hobby is getting more expensive. Inflation is driving up prices, but it's not driving up wages. And because of that, the purchasing power of the average consumer is getting worse and worse. So this luxury of video games is getting harder to keep up with, I think, for most people. And that's a bad thing. But there's hope. You know, if we can get maybe Valve to try and compete more directly with Sony and Nintendo by making a box that you hook up to your TV, or selling the Steam Deck in stores here in the States, then maybe Sony and Nintendo would react a little bit more to Steam instead of just, you know, PlayStation putting their games on Steam. By the way, I want to apologize if I was a little bit rambly on this. I wanted to sit down and talk to you, not write a script and read it to you today. I just wanted to see how I would do. This is something I used to do all the time, and I haven't done in a really long time. But if it's your first time here, please subscribe. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. Thanks for watching. Stay rad, everybody.